Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Golf fans, the countdown is on to the 2026 Colleague Companies Championship. Firestone Country Club will host world-class legends of the game July 9th through the 12th. Purchase your tickets now at colleaguechampionship.com. A ticket guarantees you access to great golf and a chance to experience all the Colleague Infinity Zone has to offer with interactive activities, bar and lounge areas, food trucks, and celebrity appearances. We'll see you at the 2026 Colleague Championships in July. Bull.
Yes, Anthony, thank you. All right, Zach, you mentioned, we talk a lot of things, and at the end of our conversation about the quarterbacks, you talked about Myles Garrett possibly being traded. Well, Albert Breer was on my former show with Nick and Jonathan yesterday, and he was asked about the possibility of Myles Garrett being traded. And every time the subject comes up, fans get frustrated, but I think,
the Browns are doing it to themselves, and Myles is doing it to himself.
Yeah. Here's what Albert Breer said. Things are TBD, to be determined. Until you hear otherwise. That could be next week. That could be the trade deadline. It's absolutely something worth paying attention to. This could just be time. Now, again, he's not saying anything definitive.
Sure.
How could he at this point? Is that it from Albert?
That's it from Albert, but we do have one on Rutenberg.
Right. Mike Rutenberg is the Browns' new DC. And he was asked, was he asked about what Albert said or just about Myles in general? Myles in general. Knew that'd be a question. I'm going to leave a lot of the interaction between me and Myles. There has been some, yes. That is an interesting answer. There's some context to that?
Well, that is because he was asked specifically if he's met Myles Garrett, because
okay.
Myles Garrett has not come in and met the new head coach.
Right.
They worked together in 2019 to an extent. But
is Myles sending a message right now that he wants out again?
Well, there is some gray area there.
Yeah.
It's for multiple reasons. One is where the Browns are, obviously. And two, when they made this contract modification in March, there was one explanation.
Yeah.
It was to open the door for a trade of Myles Garrett. It didn't mean it would happen. But it took $10 million and a guarantee of $29 over 3 years and moved it from being due in March to being due 1 week before the season, which this year is September 7th. So that means June 1, when the Browns' immediate cap hit gets reduced by $26 million, that opens June 1 to September 7th to where the Browns could trade Myles Garrett. It would be feasible on this year's cap, it would be feasible on future caps, and it would be the resolution to something that's just hanging out there awkwardly.
In your mind, what is the price they have to get to trade him?
They have to get 2 1s plus. And is that
and
a player?
2 1s in this draft would be massive.
Yes. Yeah. Is that now the problem with that immediately becomes, do they want the 30th pick in the draft? But all this came in late March when free agency was coming to an end, and before they went to the owners' meetings and laid out a proposal to be able to trade picks 5 years down the road. This year they could now you can do it 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
So what if the Browns asked for a pick from the Rams and then a first-round pick in 29 when Matt Stafford could be retired?
It's interesting.
I'm just saying, the
door would be a smart play.
You're right. People don't like the conversation.
Yeah.
People are exhausted by it. People don't like the awkwardness of it. People don't like the fact that this guy is the best player, maybe on the planet, that doesn't play quarterback, and they don't want him to go. But Myles' timeline does not match the Browns' current timeline.
Not.
This awkwardness lingers. This move was made for opening the possibility of trading him, and beginning next Monday to September 7th, the Browns obviously were not going to pay him more and then trade him. The door is open. We haven't heard from Myles. There's all this lingering awkwardness on both sides. I personally think they should. I personally think they should have a year ago. But it's real. Will someone actually meet the asking price? Is there I don't know those answers. But it's definitely real, and you can't run
if
from that.
You're a championship contender, giving up 2 first-round picks for him is a no-brainer in my mind. No-brainer.
I agree.
Because, listen, in the end, nothing's a guarantee. You can't say, well, he's the missing piece. But however many teams you think can win a Super Bowl, I don't know if that's 6, 8, 10, whatever it might be, every one of those should be making offers to the Browns right now.
That's right.
And if that's the case, and I think it will, probably not all of them will, but some of them will, and you mentioned the team, the Rams, one of the most aggressive teams out there.
Yeah.
The Browns are, next year's apparently going to be a great draft. It's going to be a late pick. We know that. But, trading with the Rams and getting a 29 pick as part of the deal could be a smart move because, even if Stafford is still playing, maybe by that point he's 40, he gets hurt, who the hell knows how good he is at that point, even if he is still there. But, as a fan, I get it. I don't want to trade Myles Garrett. But and maybe he's going to be great for another 5 years, and maybe the Browns will be good in 3 years, and they could have still had him at the back end. But that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, I think we're months from getting into a concrete discussion
Yeah.
on like where the Browns really are, how many games they can win, how many games they should win. Right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work with Deshaun or Shador, and you win any number of games that's above 3, then you're either going to need to trade your whole draft or trade Myles Garrett to get a quarterback.
Right.
So in here, you're kind of getting ahead of it. You're opening up options.
It is
And the last thing, Mike, real quick, and then go in. The longer you wait, the more years you wait to trade Myles Garrett, you're going to get a little less because he gets older.
That's right.
I don't like having these conversations. In theory, you should never talk about trading arguably the best player in the sport at the one position that can impact the defensive game plan as much as defensive end. Like, this conversation sucks to have. But it's the reality of the situation the Browns have put themselves in. It's the reality of the situation Myles Garrett has chosen to insert himself in. And you look at what Mike Rutenberg said yesterday. Look at what Todd Monken has said when asked about Myles. The best player on this franchise has still not met face-to-face with the head coach, despite the fact he's been in Cleveland before. Mm-hmm. The defensive coordinator, when asked about meeting Myles Garrett, said, I'm going to leave that between me and Myles. They could squash all this by giving us some more insight if Myles just met with Todd Monken. It wouldn't take the trade rumors off the table. That's a matter of a fact, considering the contract renegotiation, restructuring they did earlier. But we would feel a lot better about the situation if Myles just met with Todd Monken. If the defensive coordinator said, I've had a couple great conversations with Myles. He's good. He's bought in. This is the time that he does not have to be here. This is voluntary OTAs. He'll be here for minicamp, but we're all good. Instead, they're telling us everything without saying anything at all. They're saying, nope, haven't met with Myles yet. Nope, I'm going to keep that conversation between ourselves. It is weird, it is wonky, and it is uncomfortable, but the only people to blame for the situation are the Browns, Myles, and themselves.
And we know that he wants to be traded. He didn't change his mind.
Wanted to be traded.
Yeah, I'm sure he still does.
Well, we don't know, Bull. And look, he has to show up on June 9th for mandatory minicamp.
Right.
Well, he does. He could pay the fine. He can afford it, right?
Yeah.
If and when he does that, and we assume it's when, not if, he could come out and say, I want to be here. Signed a contract last year. I'm not here in the offseason. I'm on board with Coach Root. I'm on board with Coach Monken. I'm on board with this organization. We find that highly unlikely.
Yeah.
My read is that the Browns and Myles both said, somebody said at some point, look, taking this public last year didn't benefit either side.
Yeah, right.
We didn't really make any progress, and your timeline, Myles, does not match our timeline.
Yeah.
The Browns need to embrace where they are. And maybe the ultimate goal of all this quarterback madness is for once and for all to say that the Watson thing has failed, we're moving forward, we want to tank.
Yeah.
Right? And then in that case, maybe you could keep Myles Garrett. But if you finish anywhere in the middle, you're going to need to trade a whole draft or trade Myles Garrett to get the quarterback you want anyway.
The Max Crosby trade that ultimately got rescinded. Was two firsts. Was it just two firsts?
Just two firsts.
Okay, Myles Garrett's way better than
But
Max
here's
Crosby.
the reason it was just two firsts. The Ravens had the 14th pick. They weren't expecting that.
That's a good point. But also, that and Myles Garrett's better than Max Crosby.
Right.
I think he's also younger, or am I wrong?
Max is slightly younger than
Max is slightly younger.
Yes.
Does it make a difference that the first pick last year was the 27th pick as opposed to the first pick this year being the 27th pick? Or 27th draft?
No, they were supposed to get the Ravens pick this year.
No,
it was
14 and then 27. 14 and 26.
Yes.
27,
yes.
27 and 1.
Yes.
If you trade Myles now, the first pick you're getting is that 2027.
Right, but it's a late.
Yeah, well, no, if you trade Myles, you're saying we care about the 27 and future drafts.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they care about. And the Jets already have 3 first-rounders. So,
right.
You know,
so they have more ammunition to get up, and the Jets are worse than the Browns, so they're likely to already be higher in the draft.
It's a really interesting game in Week 5, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, you don't want to do it, and I get it, and I ultimately don't think that they'll trade him. But if the offer's right, and that's one of the biggest hang-ups, is some team actually offering 2 first-rounders plus a player, plus a third and a fourth.
You think a team would? You think one team like the Rams? Could you see them trading 3 first-round picks for him?
No, but I could see him trading the 27, the 29, and then other things.
Yeah,
sure, I sure could.
It's going to be fascinating.
I mean, the Browns have 2 starting quality defensive. Like they could still trot out an NFL. It no longer becomes an exceptional defense.
Right. Now it's a
they
solid
extended
defense.
Alex Wright. Isaiah McGuire's going into his year, and you're getting premium draft capital to address these positions.
Yeah. Wow, it's going to be so interesting. I know there's some people that think there's no chance he's going to get traded. I don't know how anybody could say that.
Rams, Eagles, Cowboys, Bears, Lions, like all these teams are in some sort of go for it mode.
Yeah.
what do you have to do when you're there? You got to go for it. The Niners, I'm not getting into everybody's cap numbers a year from now, but you make that exception for Myles Garrett. It's a full commitment. It's not something that happens in a day. It's something that needs ownership sign off and coaching staff sign off and everything. But like, if there really are backdoor feelers out there, like teams are having serious discussions.
Yeah,
about
and you have to listen.
By the way, I like trading into the Bears or the Cowboys a lot more than the Rams because those teams are more likely to go backwards.
Sure.
I think the Bears had the easiest schedule last year. They got one of the toughest schedules this year. They had a bad offseason on paper. I could see them go. And the Cowboys, they're always kind of mediocre most seasons.
Look, the Browns already have extra capital for next year. So you can get this, and then you can spend it a bunch of different ways. The Browns' cap situation's about to get healthier. You could. It doesn't have to be a long-term rebuild. It probably is, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether Myles will be part of it.
Yeah.
As a player on the field, or as part of it in terms of the assets they get back that they spend into the rebuild.
To me, it just makes a lot of sense to do it now and move on, and that shapes your future.
You said that you think ultimately they won't trade him. Do you feel that way because Andrew Berry just won't do it, or because you think they won't get enough to make it worth it?
I feel multiple reasons.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything, I feel like some team actually giving enough, and that being the right circumstance to do it.
So you think if some team just made them, like some team offered 3 first-round picks, it's done. It would happen.
Yes, but like Buffalo offering 2, and one of them's going to be the 30th or 31st pick.
Right. Yeah.
No, we'll keep them.
Right.
Up your ante.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. 3 first-round picks sounds amazing. But if they're all going to be bottom 5 of the first round, I mean, there's no short thing.
Well, that's why you have to look and say, okay, it's kind of like the Giannis thing, like the Bucks.
Right.
What's our
are you in
move?
right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a huge link in our chain, and then where do we go?